In 2006, NATO introduced a guideline for its member states that they must spend 2% of their GDP on defence. In 2006, this was a soft target, not binding. But in 2014, in response to Russia's annexing of Crimea, NATO leaders reaffirmed that 2% goal, now with increased political pressure, as in Russia annexing Crimea gave them what they needed to push this defence narrative forward. This is not a video about Russia annexing Crimea. Step past it, let's keep going. It gave them the justification. Since 2016, enter Donald Trump, who has been aggressively demanding that NATO member states increase their defence spending. Trump keeps threatening to withdraw the US, but he's never going to do that. NATO is the US's baby. Europe doesn't need it as much as the US does. He claims the US is being exploited. That is inverted. They are the exploiter. As usual with this kind of imperial propaganda, what they say is usually the truth, just flip it back on them. Europe is not exploiting the Americans are exploiting everybody. Trump publicly frames this issue as NATO countries are not paying their fair share and the US is carrying an undue burden of having to protect Europe. He uses debt-based language that they owe us money, but this is a fundamental misunderstanding of the structure of NATO, firstly. It's not a fee-based institution. He either completely misunderstands NATO's structure or, more likely, is deliberately distorting it for his own political rhetoric, his propaganda. The 2% target was roughly about what each individual country was paying on defence anyway. Let's talk about where that money goes. The primary suppliers of NATO's military systems are US defence firms. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, Northrop Grumman. The US conditions its military aid to its allies in Europe on the understanding that those allies will buy US-based equipment straight from the military-industrial complex. The F-35 fighter jet program is a multinational NATO project led by Lockheed Martin. And so many European NATO members are committed to buy these F-35 purchases under US pressure. Even the names of these products give it away. It's called the Patriot missile system and the Black Hawk helicopters. They're called Abraham tanks. These are, you might as well just, and they do also have giant American flags all over them. These deals are lucrative for US warhawks. They're sold to you as enhancing interoperability. That, oh, it's really good, all these NATO countries will work together and that will create a safer world. The Foreign Military Sales Program is run by the US Department of Defense, and it facilitates weapon sales to allies with embedded training, logistics, and long-term servicing of these components and parts. In other words, once a country adopts a US system of defense, it becomes dependent on the war machine. You need the Pentagon for any future upgrades and parts and maintenance contracts, and all of the data and the intel is being shared with them. That makes Europe under NATO subservient to the United States hegemony. The Trump administration and their rhetoric about the NATO burden is explicitly linked with arms deals, pressuring Germany to sell more American-made systems because America offshored all its manufacturing to China and only has war left. That's why the Pentagon spends billions and billions and billions a year to prop up this chaos. Pressure from Trump has already increased European spending. Several countries accelerated purchases, and the focus was on the most high-cost systems, the planes and the tanks and the missile defences, rather than supporting European defence infrastructure with strategic resilience, like civilian readiness, cybersecurity, better, more transparent logistics, cooperation with the global south, things that will actually stop Europe from entering into an accidental war. That's not what America's trying to do here. They want the war. Big Sam, like big war, big bomb, go boom, big money.